So 2020, really by the Brexiteers, was meant to be their ultimate victory lap. After 2019, where Farage had hosted his massive New Year welcoming the new Brexit regime party, he had all these hopes and plans for this year, which again got absolutely wiped out by the pandemic, which was absolutely fantastic. Meant that he couldn't go on his very lucrative victory lap around the US on the public speaking tour circuit, so he was denied that, which was quite frankly fantastic. But 2020 was meant to be the ultimate victory lap for Brexit. It was meant to be, the final countdown, the ultimate, the ultimateness of it. Even this year, now that Brexit has now well and truly happened, this wasn't meant to be for the Brexiteers. However, COVID for them, and really for many of the top tier Brexiteers, has been an absolute blessing in disguise, because they all fully knew the absolute disaster, the unmitigated crisis that this was going to cause in trade, in jobs, investment to this country. Remember, the worst case scenario is that the economy gets smaller because of less exports, meaning less investment and meaning less jobs. That is the worst case scenario for Brexit. But as we've said before, many people, especially in the northern areas that did vote for Brexit, voted on the belief that people like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson were telling them that if they voted for this would make their lives somehow better. And unfortunately, the fact that we are seeing a lessening, especially of 2020, because now we are starting to see some of the economic reports of 2020 come out, we are going to start to see how really bad our recovery from 2020 is going to be compared to other countries. And we have to approach this openly and honestly. But the problem is we have a government that is not going to do that, because to address the problem of why our recovery is going to take so long, or is so slow, or in some cases that many people suspect is such a stagnant mess, is because of Brexit, because we don't have access to the single market or the customs union anymore. We've got a situation I saw today of where this is parts that used to go from Holyhead to a place in Ireland now has to do a 1,400 mile route to essentially avoid the Northern Ireland border sea crossing, because that's far too much of a headache. They would rather go from Holyhead all the round over to France, across from France to Brittany, and then back over into Ireland. That is a much easier route than doing, just hopping across the Irish Sea, which is what they used to do. This is going to have, as we said, was always going to have huge economic problems, especially to many businesses and many of our industrial base, especially the car industry, that has based its entire manufacturing process on just-in-time delivery systems. Turns out you might not be able to do that if you don't have access to those systems. Just like we also learned recently, the Tesla factory that was going to be built in the UK got changed over to Germany because of Brexit. It just doesn't stop. It really just doesn't stop. But anyway, today, before we jump into today's article, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And thank you to all those people who do support me that way. So, on with the article. And the article today comes from the London Economic. And the title is British Goods Export Plummet by 540 billion and Brexit will hinder recovery. So, as we said before, we are now starting to see some of the economic reports of essentially last year start to come out. And of course, none of them are good, predominantly because of COVID. But that was also the case in 2019, in 2018, and 2017. Really, since the Brexit vote, our economy has been in a very somewhat stagnant sense, and that has been because of Brexit. But once again, we have a government that just does not want to acknowledge that Brexit is a problem. So, Britain's goods exports plummeted by 540 billion in 2020 as the country lost its market share to competitors and the coronavirus hammered global trade. And Brexit is likely to hamper the recovery, new research shows. And that is the main thing. That European competitors to UK businesses have swept in to now just swallow up new markets, because now the UK competitor is no longer considered a competitor because they've been cut off from those markets. And it's going to get even worse as other companies try to come back in to business, or other businesses start to get back up to speed of what they used to. They're going to find it even harder now to attract European customers or even sell into Europe. So, on with this research. The UK suffered a 14.7% fall in goods in exports, one of the largest slumps of any major country, and also witnessed a slower recovery as other nations took a share of the market in key export destinations. Researchers at Aston University's Centre for Business Prosperity added, considerable post-Brexit challenges threaten to derail any recovery from the devastating economic impacts of the pandemic. It is anticipated that the combination of COVID and Brexit, and along with the UK's long-term productivity challenges, will put British businesses in an adverse position for the foreseeable future, the report authors wrote. Leading good exports, including cars, oil, gas, machinery, pharmaceuticals, all fell last year as the pandemic supply chains started to break down. The centre said the impact has also been even worse without the mass inflows and outflows of gold typically bought in by investors in times of crisis as a safe haven. Researchers said the UK would need to raise productivity to avoid further post-Brexit decline. Jundu, the professor of economics at Aston Business School, said, the fundamental causes of the UK's dismal trade performance go beyond trade itself. Our analysis shows that long-term stagnation in the productivity growth is the key reason for the subdued competitiveness of the UK economy. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has said that there were always, quote, bound to be issues that required ironing out between the UK and Brussels amid a host of current post-Brexit difficulties. Lord Frost, the cabinet member who negotiated Britain's trade deal with the European Union, provoked the ire of them last week by unilaterally making changes that impacted upon the Northern Ireland Protocol. He followed up with the stern words in a Sunday Times Telegraph article calling on Brussels to, quote, shake off any remaining ill will towards the UK leaving the bloc. But this is to portray it as that is just completely ridiculous. They are making changes to an international treaties that both sides have to agree on, and yet unilaterally the UK is just going, we're going to make changes and we're not going to consult you about it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, Boris Johnson had words as well. But Johnson looked to play down the row on Sunday, saying that he was, quote, full of optimism about the cross-channel relationship. He said, I think this is one of those issues we were always bound to have in the early stages of our new relationship with our friends in the EU. And the various technical issues we are going to iron out, the Prime Minister said on Monday. Again, it's gone from teething issues to technical issues now. These are not technical issues. These are permanent. These forms are not going to go away. So, speaking during at a vaccination centre in North London, he said he was full of optimism about the future of the partnership that we are building. I'm not, because if anything, this government has shown that it is going to be completely 100% antagonistic to the EU, and is going to use them for any failures in Brexit. Is going to be essentially said, oh, it's not our fault, it's not Brexit's fault, it's the EU's fault for doing this. Again, the groundwork for this has been laid for quite some time. So, but anyway, I am sure we will get to hear more ridiculousness from Mr. Frost, and, well, or shall we say Frosty, and of course Boris as well. So, please do remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And as always, thank you to all those people who do support me that way. And we'll see you all next time.